In this video, we are going to revise Learning Unit 2 of Accounting 1B. This learning unit covers debtors and creditors reconciliation. If you want to follow alongside with me, then look in your textbook on page 27. When you prepare for an assessment, remember to go to your module outline and go through the learning unit outcomes and ensure that you align your study efforts with each of the learning unit outcomes. At the end of your revision, ask yourself if you would be able to answer a question based on each of the learning unit outcomes. Remember, these are the core takeaways from a particular learning unit. So for our upcoming semester test, Test 1 will cover Learning Units 1 and 2. Or if you are a distance student, you will be required to complete Task 1. This particular video deals with Learning Unit number 2, but if you also need revision on Learning Unit number 1, please look out for that video. This learning unit consists out of 3 distinct sections, and we're going to cover each of these 3 sections as we move through this video. And we'll also talk about the revision questions that you can do to revise each of these sections. But before we get started with the actual questions, we have to make sure that we know the definition of a debtor and a creditor. So a debtor is a person or a business that owes money to the sole trader. Other terms that you might see that gets used for a debtor is a trade receivable or an account receivable. On the other hand, the creditor is the opposite of a debtor. So this will be a person or a business that the sole trader owes money to. It is important for you to know these definitions to understand Learning Unit number 2 and also to be able to answer a possible theory question on the definition for a debtor or a creditor. Creditors are also known as trade payables or an account payable. As we said, there are 3 distinct sections in this learning unit. So let's start with the first of these 3 sections. And here we talk about your debtors and creditors ledgers, your debtors and creditors lists, and your debtors and creditors control accounts. This first section is a revision of what we did in semester 1 in learning unit number 7. So to recap then, your debtors and creditors control accounts are put together from the totals of the journals at the end of the month. Your debtors and creditors ledgers are put together from the individual transactions in the journals. At the end of the month, the debtors and creditors ledgers are summarized into a debtors and creditors list. The total of the debtors and creditors list must equal the closing balance of your debtors and creditors control account at the end of the month. If you want to revise any of these topics, you can try questions 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, 2.5, and 2.7 of your textbook. Remember again, the solutions to all textbook questions are at the back of your textbook. And then there's also some additional revision questions in Annexure B of your textbook. Let's just refresh our memories again and look at what will we record in a creditor's ledger. So on your screen now is an example of what the individual account of a creditor will look like in the creditor's ledger. Because remember, in the creditors and debtors ledgers is where we have an individual account for each of our creditors and for each of our debtors. So first up, you're going to record the date that the transaction takes place, because remember here we're interested in the individual transactions with the particular creditor or debtor. The next column refers to the transaction code, but these transaction codes must always be given to you in the question if we require you to complete this column. Next up, you have to provide the name and document number. So names of documents, we're thinking of things like invoices, EFT confirmation slips, journal vouchers. The document numbers will be given to you in the question. The next column deals with the folio, and that is the journal where the transaction was recorded. So if we're specifically looking at creditors, there's really only 4 journals. It will be cash book payments, creditors journal, creditors allowances journal, or general journal. Then in the debit column, we are going to record any amounts that reduce the amount that we owe to the creditor. And in the credit column, that's where we're going to record, for example, credit purchases that will increase the amount owing to the creditor. Don't forget that for your debtors and creditors ledgers, we work with all amounts including VAT. And then lastly, we have this balance column, and that is where we're going to record the balance after every single transaction. So we're going to calculate the balance for this particular creditor after every single transaction. Now, when we look here at our folio column and our document name column, you might wonder where can you revise again the names of the source documents and of the journals. I wonder if you remember this page from your Accounting 1A textbook. This was page 107 in your Accounting 1A textbook. I hope you still have your textbook and that you can refer back to this page, because this page is such an excellent summary of all the source documents, their correct abbreviation, so that's what you'll use in your folio column, the types of transactions linked to the journal, and then on this last column, that's where you get all the source documents that's linked to a journal. At this point in your studies, we now assume that you know which source document is linked to which transaction and to which journal. So please make sure to revise again this page 107 from your Accounting 1A textbook. Let's now look at some typical transactions that we can have with the individual creditor. So we begin our creditor's account with their opening balance. So this is the balance owing to the creditor, Panama Wholesalers, at the beginning of the month. Then the next transaction I've got here is some credit purchases. So that's when we've bought from the creditor. So you can see it's here in the credit column, because that increases the amount or the balance of what I owe to this creditor. Then if we return any of the items bought from the creditor to the supplier, then it will go in your debit column and be recorded in your creditor's allowances journal. We can also make a payment to the creditor that will be recorded in your cash book payments, and the creditor might give us a settlement discount if we pay our account early, and that will also be recorded in the debit column. It's important that you must know in which of the columns to record your transactions. Now let's have a look at the debtors ledger. So again, in the debtors ledger, we're going to have an account like the one up on your screen now for each individual debtor. So in this example, the debtor is P. Lesejo, and this is now the account for this individual debtor. Again, the dates will be the date of the transaction, and for your code column, we will have to give you these codes in the assessment if we want you to complete that question, or this column. Often you will see in the question, we will say you can ignore this code column. Source documents here, again, will be credit invoices, receipts, and journal vouchers. Again, the source document numbers will be given to you in the assessment question. Folios here, we're talking about cash book receipts, debtors journal, debtors allowances journal, or general journal. These are the 4 journals most often used for transactions with debtors. The key difference to note now between the debtors and the creditors ledger, this time around, the decrease is in the credit column and the increase to the balance of the debtor is in the debit column. Once again, all amounts must be inclusive of VAT, and we're going to calculate the balance owing by the debtor after every single transaction. Make sure you calculate this balance after every single transaction. Let's have a look now at a past paper question. So in 2025, in test 1, the students were asked to prepare the debtors ledger and just the account for a single debtor, Ross. So we had to do the debtors ledger for this single debtor. But before we jump in and answer the question, just a quick few reminders and some exam tips. So when you are then in your assessment, your test or your exam, remember again the importance of managing your time. That means you should take the marks allocated to the question, multiply it by 1.2, and that will give you the amount of time that you can spend on this question. Please don't spend more than that amount of time on the question, because then that is going to impact your later questions in the assessment. Particularly in your semester test, you've only got 1 hour to complete the test, so you can't afford to spend too much time on a single question, because then you may not finish your semester test. The second exam tip is to make sure you always read your required with care, so that you make sure that you are answering exactly what it is we want you to do in that question. Because remember, our mark allocation is linked to what we require of you in a particular question. It's not only the required that you need to read with care, but also make sure you read all of the information in the question carefully so that you don't miss any key or important facts. Okay, so let's begin now to answer this question. And as we said, you need to make sure you've read your required carefully. So they want us to do the individual account for Ross in the debtors ledger. And then they also give us 2 additional bits of information. They remind us to show our workings and that all amounts should be rounded to the nearest rand. So really make sure, students, that you are reading all of the information before you start with your question. So this is then what the answer will look like. So if you want to try this question on your own, then you can try the question and then come back and mark it against the solution that I've just provided. But let's just talk through the answer now. So again, we're going to always start your debtors or your creditors ledger with the opening balance. So in this question, the opening balance was given to me there at the start of the question. So that is where I found the opening balance. Remember, the opening balance only goes into the balance column, and we can see it is a debit balance. The next transaction was a credit sale, so that's this next transaction. And here you can see they did provide us with the document numbers, and in some instances they also gave us the name of the source documents. Next up, there was a sales return, and this you can now see goes in the credit column because that now reduces the amount owing to us by this debtor. Remember again that your debtors and creditors ledgers must always be the amounts including VAT. So you can see in this question, for both the sales and the sales returns, we were provided with the amount excluding VAT. So in both instances, you can see here that I had to add on the VAT before adding it into the correct column. So make sure you look out for little details like that in your assessment questions. Next up, our debtor paid us a part of their balance. So they paid via EFT, but our source document will be a receipt. And then we also gave them a 3% settlement discount because they settled their account in time. So this 1503 is our settlement discount. And then the last transaction, we made another credit sale to the debtor, and this time around we were given the amount including VAT. And as they said here under required, we need to show all our workings. And so here where I made the VAT calculations, that's why I'm showing the workings. But even if they don't remind us to show workings, remember to always show your calculations in an accounting assessment. Let's just quickly check now, how did we calculate these balances? As you can see, I calculated the balance after every transaction. So for example, this balance over here, you always start with the previous balance and then you add or subtract the current transaction. So the current transaction was a credit sale in the debit column, so that's a plus, and that's how I arrive at the 56259. Let's see if we can do another one. So how did we get to 1503? Again, I start with the previous balance. This time around, I'm dealing with a credit amount, so the amount is minus. So I'm subtracting the credit amount, and that's how I arrive at the 1503. Once you've completed your debtors and creditors ledgers, then you summarize the balances in the ledgers per debtor into the debtors and creditors lists. And you can see the debtors and creditors list is like a trial balance for debtors and creditors. Now that we've looked at how to write up the individual debtor and creditor, let's also have a look at your debtors and creditors control accounts that are in the general ledger. Remember again, these control accounts is where we use the totals from the journals and not the individual transactions. So first up, I'm starting with a debtors control account. And there's three facts that I want to share about the debtors control account. So first thing is, remember in any general ledger account to always start with your opening balance. Your debtor is a current asset, so therefore the balance will sit on the debit side of the general ledger account, and we are making use of debt. Remember again, that debt comes from your debt click rule, where we say debit, expenses, assets, and drawings. And a debtor is a current asset. And then the third important fact is that this opening balance should be equal to the total of your debtors list from the previous month. So if we just go back, let's see if we can quickly go back. Sorry, I don't seem to be able to go back now, but this is the total of your debtors list then from the previous month. Then what else will we record in your debtors control account? We will record credit sales. So these are all the credit sales for the month, so the total. It comes from the debtors journal. This number includes VAT, and it increases the overall balance of the debtors control account. On the credit side, we're going to record your sales returns. These come from your debtors allowances journal. Once again, it will be the amount including VAT. And because it's now on the credit side of the account, it's going to decrease your debtors balance. Then your debtor will make a payment to the business, and that we will find in cash book receipts. And there can also be a discount for early settlement. And both the money received from the debtor as well as these discounts are also on the credit side, as they will also reduce the amount owing by the debtor. Then the transactions in the general journal. This is the only journal where there's an exception, and here we do post the individual transactions. Where with your debtors journal, your debtors allowances journal, and your cash book receipts, in those journals we use the totals. But because we have a variety of entries in the general journal, we're going to post the individual transactions. For example, examples will be interest received, credit losses, and then of course this one here was your settlement discount. And as I said, remember, all of these amounts are inclusive of VAT. So in the details, I'm also going to say and VAT. At the end of the month, we need to balance our account. And remember again, you add up the biggest of the two sides, which for a debtor will be the debit side, and that will give you this total. You write the total in the same line on the credit side. You then subtract the amounts from the smaller side, which in this instance is your credit side, and that then gives you your balance carried down. And then don't forget on the first day of the next month to also show us your balance brought down. This balance then at the end of the month must equal your total of your debtors list at the end of the month. So the balance on the control account must always equal the total of the debtors list at the end of the month. So just to recap, when a question asks you to do a general ledger account, remember to always start with your opening balance, then to post the journal totals to the account except for the general journal, and then lastly remember to balance your account properly at the end of the month. And then we still use our debt click rule from semester 1, where we know that because it is an asset, the asset will always increase on the debit side. And for our creditors, creditors are liabilities. So for them, the increase is going to be on the credit side. This debt click rule, you can use this for your debtors and creditors control accounts and for your debtors and creditors ledgers. Let's have a look now at how to prepare our creditors control account. So as we said, for the creditors control account, this time around the balance will be on the credit side because we're using click when it comes to creditors, and creditors is one of the current liabilities of the business. We always start our account with the opening balance, and this opening balance should be equal to the total of the previous month's creditors list. Other transactions with creditors will be any credit purchases that will come from the creditors journal, or any returns made to suppliers, which we will find in the creditors allowances journal. Remember again to always use the amount including VAT, and then to also add to your details plus VAT. Then we will make payments to the creditors from cash book payments, and then there can also be discounts that we receive from our creditors for early settlement of the balance. Now, when it comes to this discount entry, here it is now important for you to check which inventory system is being used in the question. Is it a perpetual inventory, or is the question making use of periodic inventory? Because your details up here will change depending on the inventory system. So here in learning unit number 2, it's important again that before you start a question, you check the inventory system. that is being used in the question, like we showed you last semester in Learning Unit 6. Then from the general journal, another entry could be your interest that the creditors charge on our account. Remember again, general journal entries here, we don't post the totals, but we post the individual transactions. Once again, we're going to make sure that we balance the account properly at the end of the month. And ideally, we want this balance here to equal the total of the creditors list at the end of the month. To recap then, in your general ledger accounts, remember, always start with the opening balance. And then make sure your details, for details, we're looking for the name of the contra account. So we're looking for general ledger account names under details. Don't forget your folios. Your folios is your journal. In which journal did I find this total? And then lastly, don't forget to balance your account at the end of the month. So in terms of section 1 then, let's do a quick recap. So we record our transactions from the source documents into the monthly journals. The individual transactions from these journals are posted to the individual debtor and creditors accounts in the debtors and creditors ledgers. The totals of these journals are posted to the debtors and creditors control account. And at the end of the month, we assume, or we want to see, that our totals from our debtors and creditors lists equal the balance on our debtors and creditors control account. In 2024, students were asked to prepare the creditors control account, and this was the question. So again, if you want to try this question, you can pause the video now, try the question, and then start again and see if you agree with the answer that I'm giving in the next slide. This question is similar to question 2.7 of your textbook. And remember again, when you're doing a Learning Unit 2 question, it's important to check which inventory system is being used by the question, because, for example, it's going to impact your details for some of the transactions. So if you've completed this question, then you can check your answers against this slide. In this particular question, in that 2024 test, the students also had to create a general journal entry for the discount that was given to, that was received from the debtor. If you need some additional revision on this first part of a Learning Unit 2, then you can go and look back at the revision we did last semester in Accounting 1A. So remember, you can go back to our School of Management YouTube channel, and you can go and look for our Learning Unit 7 revision that we did last semester, and then also for the Learning Unit 5 revision. These will help you with control accounts and general journal entries, and this will help you with the debtors and creditors ledgers. Now, the next thing that we need to be able to do in a Learning Unit 2, so the next possible type of questions is now, what will now happen if the closing balances on the control accounts are not equal to the lists of the debtors list and the creditors list? So that is the next type of question that we can ask you out of this learning unit. And if you want to revise these types of questions, look at questions 2.6, 2.8, and 2.9 of your textbook. So now we're looking at the scenario where our total of our debtors list is not the same as the balance on the debtors control account. And in the question then, we will provide you with reasons why there is a difference between the list total and the control account balance. And then your job will be to correct these errors or these omissions that have been identified. And of course, for you is now to determine where to make each of these corrections. So first up, if the problem lies with the individual debtor or individual creditor, then we are going to make the correction on the debtors or creditors list or in the debtors or creditors ledger. If the error was made in a total of one of the journals, then our correction is going to be in the control account. And then sometimes there can be a scenario where we, for example, left out a transaction, and in those instances we then need to record the transaction for the individual debtor or creditor, and we also need to record it in the control account. To illustrate this, I'm going to use question 2.9 from the textbook. To illustrate this, I'm going to use question 2.9 of the textbook. So if you want to follow alongside with me, then look at question 2.9 of the textbook. So in this question, they already gave us a creditor's control account. But then later in the question, we realize that there is some problems with this creditor's control account. So our first step is first just to correct what has been given to us and just to do our setup. So in your answer booklet in the assessment, you will start the question by doing some general setup. So you can see, for example, at this point, I've got no amounts in the amount column. I've moved all the amounts to just directly below the details, because as the question progresses, I might realize that I still need to adjust some of these totals. So I want to leave myself enough space to do all the workings. So don't immediately in these types of questions write a value here in the amount column, because then you're going to end up having to cross out in your answer booklet. So there was a few problems. So the first thing, as you can see then, I've just moved all of it over into the workings section. And then there you can see I don't have an opening balance for the question, because in the question they actually said that the opening balance that they gave us in the control account in the original question was actually incorrect. So for this, when we start the question, then we actually do not have an opening balance. And then lastly, they went and they put the settlement discount on the credit side of the creditor's control, and in fact it belongs here on the debit side. So I also had to eliminate or delete this transaction and put it in the right place. So that's my sort of initial setup before I can even start dealing with all the reasons they're giving for the difference between the control account and the creditors list. Then next up, they provide us with a creditors list, and that's going to be the starting point from where we're going to make all the adjustments. Now, when you work through the question, you will realize now where all these numbers come from. I'm not going to discuss them now in detail. You can work through question 2.9. So these are now all the adjustments that has to be made to the individual creditor's balance. And then we have the new balances for the creditors. Then this total now, this is the total at the end of the month on your creditors list. And we're going to use this total to calculate the opening balance for our creditors control account. But before I show you that, remember to always show us your workings And in these types of calculations, we need to be able to see clearly whether you are adding or are you subtracting the particular adjustment. Okay, so please make sure you are showing us all of your workings. So as I said, this total then on the creditors list is equal to the closing balance on your creditors control account. So be careful with these types of exercises. It's not the opening balance, but it is the closing balance. So let's go back here. So this 90570 is the closing balance on the creditors control account, and we still have not got the opening balance of the control account. So now we have to calculate the opening balance. By this time around, we're going to subtract these credit amounts from the debit side to be able to calculate the opening balance. So this is a little bit different to how we would normally go about to do a question like this. Now, these types of questions can also be asked in a different layout. And if you look at question 2.6 in your textbook, you will see that there is another layout that we can use to test if you can reconcile the control account to the debtors or creditors list. And here in 2024, we created a question similar to that question 2.6 in your textbook. So here, instead of actually doing the entire control account, you do it more in a calculation type of format. So again, if you want to pause the video here, then you can try the question. It comes from the 2024 test 1. And then once you've had a chance to try the question, then you can come to this slide over here where you can then check to see if you made all of your corrections. And again, you can see I'm showing all of my workings and I'm showing clearly whether I'm adding or subtracting the particular adjustment. And at the end of it, my balance on my debtors control account equals my total on my debtors list. There was also 2 shorter questions in this 2024 test, which you can again pause the video now and quickly see if you're able to answer these 2 shorter questions, and then you can carry on with the rest of the recording. Now, the third and last thing that you need to be able to do in Learning Unit 2 is now where we look at reconciling the individual account of the creditor with the statement that we receive from the creditor. So if we go back here, we've now done all of our creditors controls, we've done our creditors ledgers, we've done our creditors list, and now we receive the statements from the individual creditor. And now the last thing we need to do is to make sure that what the creditor is showing on their statement is also equal to what we are showing in our creditors ledger. If you want to revise these types of questions, then look at questions 211, 212, 13, and 14 of your textbook. Now, most of the textbook examples talk about reconciling the creditor statement with the creditor's ledger, but there can also be a scenario where we need to reconcile the debtor's remittance advice to the debtor's ledger. Okay, so let's look again at a typical question then from this third section in Learning Unit number 2. This question comes out of the 2024 test. Again, if you want to pause the video now and first attempt the question and then rejoin the video and see if you agree with if your answer agrees to my answer. When you tackle a question like this, the first important thing is again for you to check on the inventory system that is being used. So throughout Learning Unit 2, make sure that you check which inventory system is being used in the question. And then the second thing that you need to understand is you need to make sure you understand who is the sole trader and who is the creditor. That is very important because sometimes it can become a bit confusing in an assessment to tell the two apart. So in this scenario then, over here, we've got the creditor's ledger of Paddle Action. So this is our sole trader. So we are the sole trader. So this is our business records. And then on this side here, BT Rackets is our creditor, and with other words, they are our supplier. So they supply to Paddle Action. So it's always important before you start the question to quickly note this for you on the assessment paper. Who is the sole trader? So in whose accounting records is this question set, and who is the supplier? And what you also need to understand is that in the books of Paddle Action, BT Rackets will be their creditor, and we will record transactions in the creditor's ledger. But in the books of BT Rackets, Paddle Action is actually one of their debtors, and they will be recording all the transactions in the debtor's ledger. So this is a little bit like our bank reconciliations, where it depends who prepared the records. Is it done from the viewpoint of the supplier, or is it done from the viewpoint of the sole trader? And this, just as in Learning Unit 1, this is a really important slide that you have to grasp. Otherwise, you're going to struggle with your Learning Unit 2 questions. So just to make sure you understand it, so we have the same transactions, but the transactions are recorded opposite. So from Paddle's perspective, they are recording the transactions with BT Rackets in the creditor's ledger, but from BT Rackets' viewpoint, they are recording the transactions in the debtor's ledger. So it is like the transactions is in a mirror image. The one business is doing the opposite of how the other business is recording the transactions. So what we will do now, when we receive the statement from the supplier or from the creditor, we are going to use our creditor's ledger. So here is the creditor's ledger with all the different entries, and we're going to compare that now to the entries on the supplier's statement. And we're going to compare the credit column in the creditor's ledger with the debit column on the creditor's statement. And likewise, we are going to compare the debit column in the creditor's ledger to the credit column on the statement from the supplier. So again, remember we're using that analogy of a mirror image. So the statement is opposite to what we've done in our debtors and creditors ledgers. So once again, we're going to come across either entries that was left out, or we're going to come across some errors. And we then again have to decide where to address these transactions that was either left out or was not correctly recorded. So when you read through them, the first question then to ask is, where is the problem? Is the problem in the creditor's ledger? If the problem is in the creditor's ledger, I'm going to have to then correct the creditor's ledger And in some instances, I also have to correct the creditor's control account. Okay, so this is a problem purely on the side of the business. So the business has to correct their ledger and their control account. If the error was made by the creditor and you find the error on the creditor's statement, then the creditor has to make the correction, and the creditor will do so in the creditor's reconciliation statement, or another word for it is the remittance advice. So in this question then, they gave us under the additional information 8 reasons why there was a difference between the transactions that Paddle Action recorded and the transactions that BT Rackets have recorded. So each one of these 8 transactions then, I have to come back here and I have to assess, is the problem with a Paddle Action? Then Paddle Action has to make the corrections in the creditor's ledger or creditor's control account, or is the problem with BT Rackets? And if that is the case, I'm going to add that to my creditor's reconciliation statement, or another word for that is the remittance advice. So to begin then, we're now going to start by fixing up the creditor's ledger. So we're now looking for all the corrections that Paddle Action has to make, and we're going to include that in our creditor's ledger. And we start our creditor's ledger with this balance. Can you all see? We started with the last balance in the creditor's ledger. So we started with that balance, and then from there is where we're going to make all the different corrections. Okay, did you all see which balance I'm using? I'm using the last balance on the creditor's statement. At the same time, I'm also preparing my reconciliation statement or my remittance advice. And these are now the errors that I want BT Rackets to correct. And this statement now begins with the last balance on the statement received from the creditor. So this time around, I'm starting with the 47680 because these are now the numbers relating to BT Rackets. When I'm finished with this reconciliation statement, I'm going to email this to BT Rackets together with my EFT payment, and then they will be able to see which corrections they still need to process on their side. So again, we're back to our 8 corrections, and we're going to use our little flow chart to work out, is it something that Paddle Action has to fix in the creditor's ledger, or is it something that we are going to notify BT Rackets that they need to fix it on their side? So I've indicated here for you in each instance, is it an issue for Paddle Action? Those are the ones in the yellow blocks that we're going to have to fix in our creditor's ledger. Or is it corrections that BT Rackets have to make? And those I'm going to include on my creditor's reconciliation statement. So this is what it will look like at the end. So here at the top of the slide, this is now the updated creditor's ledger. So there is now those 3 corrections that we had to make on our end, things that we've either left out or that we didn't record properly. And again, please remember to show workings. And then on the bottom of your screen, this is now the reconciliation statement. So these are now the corrections we want our BT Rackets to make. And right there at the end, that is how much we're going to pay via EFT. So you see as well on this side, I'm writing balance, EFT payment. So this is what we're going to pay over to BT Rackets, and we're going to also email this little summary to them so that they can understand why are we not paying them 47,680 rands and why are we only paying them 19,844 rands. And what you'll also see is that the last balance in my creditors ledger on the account of BT Rackets is also 19,844 rands. So it is exactly the same as this EFT payment that I'm making to BT Rackets. And if you can get these two amounts to be exactly the same, then you know you have correctly reconciled your creditors ledger to the creditors statement. So as I said, a learning unit 2 then has got 3 distinct sections. Make sure that you are practicing questions from each of the 3 sections, because in the different assessments we can assess you on any of the sections in this learning unit. And then remember, there's also that revision from last semester that is particularly useful for this first section in learning unit number 2. Lastly then, make sure that you know your theory and that you circle back to page 108 of your Accounting 1A textbook so that you can refresh again your memory on source documents and journals. Redo all the textbook questions. So even the ones that you didn't do in class, make sure you practice all the textbook questions. Remember, it's pages 27 to 72 of your Accounting 1B textbook, and the solutions are at the back of the textbook. And then during your assessment, make sure that you're managing your time, that you're not overspending time on a single question. Read all the information carefully, but particularly the required, so that you are answering exactly what we want in that particular question. And please don't forget to show us all your workings.